welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and the good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, and of course you good old boys in Canada. You know we love you, Canada, but Big C, there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys in the storm?
Yeah. Everything was good, you know. Neighbors are wondering what was going on, you know, because I got
It's all good. As we say, we live in a colorblind society, according to President Trump. I do want to say today is a beautiful September the 6th, 2017, in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Big C, I just have, you know, it's like this is the time of year in California's heat waves, record heat waves, about 110 degrees. Some parts of California up as high as 117 degrees just within the past 7 days. And then down in the south, where you good old boys are, we have another hurricane coming in, and CNN was saying it might be the biggest hurricane and the fastest hurricane to hit the United States in history. Big C, your thoughts? Wow.
Those island nations are just going to be devastated. There was one country, St. Croix, Charlton, where the three tallest buildings they said in the country had collapsed.
Wow.
So, I mean, we're talking about a devastating 3 weeks in the southern hemisphere here, Charlton. You know, we started in the Gulf of Mexico, hitting Houston and Louisiana. Now we're down in the Caribbean, Charlton, going through that sector of islands that they have down there that are such, you know, tourist, you know, destinations. And Charlton, they rely so much on the tourism industry. And with this devastation that is going through these islands, Charlton, these people may never recover because so much of their income and livelihood is based on people coming to visit.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, sports is something that takes a back seat to all of the natural events that are going on all throughout the country. We just want to hope that we can keep everybody safe. Pay attention to all the emergency services telling people where to go. I do want to say this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Big C sent you. You can drive a car or you can drive a Cadillac. So, see, I want to ask you this question. I know we just got through the end part of what happened in Texas with the floods in Texas and the hurricane that hit there in the Gulf. Now it seems like we have the same thing happening going on up north, actually in the south where you guys are. Are they still people who were trying to recover from getting back from helping out people in Texas? Now they got to go back home to Florida and they got to deal with that issue. Big C, your thoughts? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what Americans do, Charlton, is that they lend a helping hand in situations of dire straits like that. Now we're going to be devastated on the eastern seaboard, Charlton, down in the southern coast of Florida and stuff. You know, they're talking about coming along the Miami-Dade County area down there, and you know, they're expecting a lot of devastation from this hurricane, Charlton, but not just this one, with Emma.
Yeah.
There's two more hurricanes that have formed out in the Atlantic Ocean that are following the path of Emma. So this could be the most devastating hurricane season in history, Charlton, about to occur here in the United States.
Well, you know, you have Vice President Gore was saying he had a movie called An Inconvenient Truth. Now, I don't know if this is the biggest one in history that could hit the United States. Obviously, where there's global warming, that's a scientific matter, but that's something for the governments around the world to deal with, how to cut down on some of the carbon pollution. But I just do want to,
Also, this eclipse that just passed that everyone was so elated about.
Yeah.
The thing that happens with the eclipse, Charlton, is it changes the polar pull of the United States.
Yeah.
Scientists will verify this. I don't know anything. I think I flunked science tonight.
Yeah.
When you look at it, sea levels rise.
Yeah.
When you have polar pull.
Yeah.
And they drop also. So when you look at that wave effect that it creates, also, Charlton, with the wind change.
Yeah.
All of these things are a part of our solar solar system that moves.
Yeah.
And I understand the global warming, it's all there also, but Charlton, a lot of these things parallel each other.
Yeah.
It happens with nature. And nature is something that can't be undone, it can't be predicted all the time.
Yeah, it definitely tells us how small we are in the eye of the universe. We always say that Big C Sports is the #1 sports show in the universe. And I do just want to say all of our thoughts and prayers go out to the people in the South, whether it's Texas or Florida or Louisiana and Alabama, a lot of them southern states, Georgia hitting the East Coast as well. I just hope everyone heeds the warnings, Big C. But I do want to talk about in the United States, in the world of football, you know, we're always happy about what's coming up, and we'll touch on it too. Michael Bennett, who plays for the Seattle Seahawks, and just during the Vegas fight down in Las Vegas with McGregor and Mayweather, and I was telling you there's a lot of tension in the air, and we know because the fight had such a hype build up to it, and I was just saying some things may happen more outside of the ring than what happens in the ring, and here it is where I guess he has filed a lawsuit against Las Vegas police officers for excessive force, where he had a gun pointed at his head, and they even held him in their squad car for a long time before they realized who he was, Big C. And this goes right in line, ironically, with people talking about Colin Kaepernick having his issues with the United States and, you know, law enforcement, criminal justice, wanting to shine a bright light on that. Isn't it ironic that another African American, this time the one who's well known, goes through the same garbage that Colin Kaepernick was trying to end? Big C, your thoughts? Yeah.
You're a large black man walking around and you're dressed casually.
Yeah.
You have to be doing something wrong. Why are you in this area? You know, this is the police mentality, Charlton. You know, and once again, you say the police are saying, well, let our side of it come out.
Yeah.
Well, we saw the videotape that's been all over the news, Charlton, what come out. You
Yeah.
know, thank God for cameras. But this just didn't start with Michael Bennett. This
Yeah.
started with Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
Let's go back to 1992 in Los Angeles, Charlton.
Yeah.
When 12 police officers beat a man close to death.
Yeah.
Rodney King. The Rodney King incident will be infamous forever.
Yeah.
It was the first time that it was captured on video what black people have been saying for decades.
Yeah.
The mistreatment by blacks from white police officers.
Yeah.
And these white officers had the audacity, Charlton, to say that they were in fear of their life.
Yeah.
They took turns. They would beat him for a while. They would rest. Another set officer would come in and beat him for a while. But they said that they were in fear of their life while they had 3 tasers up to him and a couple sets of billy clubs going at him at the same time.
Yeah.
And they were acquitted by an all-white jury, Charlton. They moved this out to Simi Valley.
Yeah.
Where it would be all white in Los Angeles. And I'm not saying that this is a racial incident, but you have to look at it for what it's worth, Charlton. But it started and it catapulted where things are today.
Yeah.
At that point, when white jurors would not believe that this black man wasn't doing anything wrong while he was laying on the ground in public, because
Yeah.
if it was a dog that they were beating on, Charlton, you'd have had a dozen white
Oh,
people
yeah.
walking up saying you're doing something wrong. But
Yeah.
this was a black man, so it was acceptable to do this. And so what we saw with Michael Bennett, Charlton, is the culture of the American police force
Yeah.
in America, Charlton. I'm not saying that all police officers are bad.
No.
It's just like they sit there and say, well, you're black, and something has to be wrong because you're black. White people do the same thing that black people do, Charlton.
Yeah.
But they're not treated in the same nature by white police officers that black Americans are, Charlton.
And that's a point that's brought up by so many people, even going back to Rodney King, whether it was the Detroit riots or the Watts riots. If people just Google the Kerner Commission, it's still there. And the stinging part, and of course, I'm glad that we didn't have a tragic ending.
We just saw Charlotte. I believe
Yeah,
Charleston,
yeah, Charlottesville, yeah,
Charlottesville, West Virginia, okay?
Yeah.
There was no cops cuffing people up, holding them down, beating them with clubs. Charleston, they didn't do that.
no,
These are all white people in the crowd. You know, there was a white guy that ran over 19, 20 people, Charleston.
yeah.
You know, they eventually got him, but if he was black, they would have shot him right there, okay?
I believe,
That's the
yeah,
difference of how that occurred. But these white people were being violent in the street, and they said, oh, we'll just let this play out. It's just boys being boys, as Trump would say.
yeah. You know, when I hear some of our media brethren, you know, black and white, when I hear them say that, you know, Colin doesn't deserve a job and he's not going to get a job because people are still upset that he wouldn't stand for the flag, as if they have no idea Black Lives Matter. I don't care who it is, whether it's a Boomer Esiason or anybody else, or Trent Dilfer, anyone else who had something very derogatory to say about Colin Kaepernick's stance, I'm sure they'll say the same thing to Michael Bennett, get the hell out of the country. But none of them could ever say that they've had law enforcement put a gun to their head or even arrest them and detain them just for driving around in a white neighborhood or in a nice neighborhood. None of those broadcasters and sportscasters that came out against Colin Kaepernick's stance will ever have to go through what Colin Kaepernick talked about. I've been through the same thing that Michael Bennett's been through. I know so many other African Americans who's been through it. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
The black guys look like you. And what's ironic in America, Charleston?
What's that?
The white guys look like each other. That's the thing that
There's more of them out there, and they don't have the same stories. Yeah. And they have more, there's more, the white population is larger, but even our brethren that say they want to be concerned, you have a lot of athletes putting their hands on these African American shoulders, when they're just trying to bring attention to what just happened to Michael Bennett. The smart thing about Bennett, he's a very intelligent man. He waited until he got all the information he needed with his lawyer, John Burris, who's a civil rights attorney, and he made sure that he got all of his ducks in a row. He didn't just act belligerent. He didn't try to make a big stink about it. He did what everyone should do, but not everybody can afford a lawyer. And for the most part, even when you can afford a lawyer, if they get the chance to choose a jury of their peers, they won't convict you anyway. So obviously, hopefully he'll get some help behind that. But for the young African Americans, even our white counterparts, and I hear them on TV, on radio and TV all the time in Northern California saying, well, he didn't stand for the flag and he disrespected the troops. Not one of them have ever admitted to being harassed by law enforcement, have a gun held to their heads as they're asked for their driver's license, are you out on parole or probation? They don't live that same lifestyle. So maybe I can't excuse it, Big C, but I just believe a lot of them have never dealt with that, so they don't believe we're telling the truth, even when they see it on tape. Big C, your thoughts? Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That's the comparison that we can have.
Yeah.
If you have a nut allergy, you stay away from nuts.
Yeah.
You're white, so you're automatically law enforcement doesn't bother you.
They don't get profiled. No.
If you have a nice European car driving through a certain neighborhood,
Yeah.
they question why you're in that neighborhood, even though you live 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
Down the street from where you're being stopped.
Yeah.
When you're driving down the street, Charlie, you see an officer behind you. You change lanes. He changed lanes behind you. You change lanes again.
Yeah.
Their lights go on, and they say that, well, you're driving erratically. So, but you're following me. Why? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
All of these things occur, and they agitate people.
Yep.
Not just whites and blacks, but they agitate everybody.
Yeah.
If you're a white person and you're driving down the street and the police pull you over for no reason because you're driving while white, then you're the rare entity.
Yep.
Black athletes are targeted on a regular basis as well as just normal black citizens.
Yeah.
Because of who you are.
Yep.
So you're in a certain neighborhood, you shouldn't be afforded to live there in their mindset. How can you live there and I don't live there? What makes you special? You got to be doing something wrong or illegal to afford this lifestyle. Not true. There are a lot of well-off Americans, not just athletes.
Yeah.
Black Americans who live in these prestigious neighborhoods where I live in this state.
Yeah.
They're all over the place, but they're still targeted, y'all.
Yeah.
I've been stopped because of the type of car I drive.
Yeah.
And it's like, is this your car? Tell me how many white people have ever been stopped by the police, and the first question out of a cop's mouth, is this your car?
They don't.
Where are you going?
So let me.
I'm not
Yeah.
a 3-year-old walking out of the house from my parents.
Right.
I have driver's license. I don't have any criminal record. I don't have any warrants. Why are you asking me where am I going and I'm just driving down the street and haven't made any traffic infractions?
And you know that the great thing about you bringing that up and more, now everyone has a body cam, everyone has a cell phone. They really got to record these incidents. And we're not talking about the good law enforcement, but the good ones that when they don't throw out the bad ones, they become what they call an accomplice to the fact or after the fact, Big C. Yeah.
To the perpetrator, Charles.
Yeah, and that's
just like any other crime
Yeah.
committed, they are an accessory to the perpetrator.
Yeah, and ironically, when people say, oh, that's just a Southern issue or that's a once-in-a-lifetime issue, it's so rare. You know, they did an investigation into the San Francisco Police Department. You know, the city by the bay, the fourth largest media market in the United States of America. And this was just recently over the past several years, Big C. And they found a lot of that good old boy subsurface covert enforcement, what they call the neo-Nazi people, or we call it blatantly the Ku Klux Klan. They still found a lot of those people with their hate messages spread out through the San Francisco Police Department, as well as others throughout the United States of America. That's what Colin Kaepernick's talking about. But when you never have to face that, as many of my white brethren that say, oh, I can't believe he didn't stand up for the flag, they've never had a gun held to their head, neither have their wives or their kids or their parents. So they either tacitly consent to it or they're just really dumb. So when they even go on radio and TV saying it, it's a shame.
School children have not stood up for the Pledge of Allegiance for the flag, Charlton, in America because of religious beliefs.
Yeah.
But nobody's chastising them or ostracizing them.
No.
Because you get a black man who's standing up for social cause, okay?
Yeah.
Social cause. Not against the flag, but against social improprieties that are occurring every day in America.
Yeah.
He didn't commit a criminal act.
No.
If he'd committed a criminal act, the NFL would employ him.
Yeah.
You know, I'm appalled at Ray Lewis coming out speaking against Colin Kaepernick
Yeah.
the other night on HBO.
Yeah.
He came out blasting Colin Kaepernick and his girlfriend, regardless of what they do on social media. If you don't want to read it, don't read it.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But Ray Lewis is one of three players that I know of in the past decade and a half in the NFL. Jared Little, Dante Stallworth, and Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
Who are part of costing another American their life.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
They all participated in costing another American their life, and they were still able to continue their NFL career, make millions of dollars after the American lost their lives behind these individuals.
Yeah. And
Jared Little was a defensive end with the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah.
Dante Stallworth played with the Patriots and the Ravens after this, as well as Ray Lewis
Yeah.
played with the Ravens.
Yeah.
Here he is going to talk about somebody not standing up for a flag, but yet he helped cost an American his life and get charged with
obstruction of justice, and they still can't find some of the clothing, ironically, but it didn't stop them from getting a job. And you can always Google it too. Just use the little blue G on your phone. Google it about people when they start advocating to support this, I guess, the establishment that says, you don't matter unless you play for me, boy. And a lot of guys, I guess you can give them enough money and they'll start saying, you know what, maybe you are right, boss. And that, just Google the facts. That way you can learn it for yourself. I do want to bring this up too. I want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And for every industry, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports. When you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you. I got to bring this point up too, Big C, because we have our president that just recently, I think it was in the last month, he was speaking in front of law enforcement. And he was even on TV saying, rough them up. Rough them up. And some of these good old boys in the blue uniforms, they were all cheering. Rough them up. And then he just pardoned this knucklehead out of Arizona for racially profiling. Okay? So we can't say that there's not some subliminal programming going on telling people. In Arizona. Yeah. Nope.
Because the man was guilty.
Yeah.
He was guilty. And, just, here it is, Trump saying, I'm okay with you profiling me.
Yeah.
You think about the President of the United States and telling law enforcement that it's okay to profile people.
Yeah.
So what Colin Kaepernick was standing for is against what the President is advocating.
Yeah.
The profiling of minorities. And people don't get that.
Oh, they get it.
When you're not a non-minority, Charles.
They get it, Big C. I just think a lot of people like the status quo because they feel comfortable. I gotta also bring this point up with this DACA movement where they want to repeal it. I guess it's over now. They gotta send it to Congress to see if they can fix the issue and try to deport over 800,000 Americans back to Mexico. But you can Google this too. 40% of the undocumented Americans, they come from Europe. 40%. When have you heard anyone talking about building a wall to stop Europeans from coming to the United States? They just have a different skin color. And I ask people to Google it. They the same thing. You sometimes... Yeah. And you can Google that. You can Google that. Yeah. Well, you can Google that if you don't believe it or not. And sometimes you just got to trust the facts. And sometimes it comes from your phone more than some network TV program where they're paid to tell you one thing. But Big C, I still hope that everybody, and I'm so proud for Bennett being intelligent and learning to use the law as opposed to being shot, as a lot of people are that don't have his clout, Big C. And so for the next young African-American man, keep your cool, call 911 when you're being arrested or detained, so at least it's on record. You can also record it with your phone. That will keep bad people from doing bad when they know they're being recorded. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but that's still something you can do. Big C, I want to touch on a little bit of what's going on in the world of college football. And I know we have the storm and the hurricane hitting Florida, so I even feel a bit disingenuous, but I just want to run a little bit of what happened and coming up with our college football programs. We have the rankings coming out. Alabama at number 1, and then Ohio State's number 2, even though they were not impressive, Ohio State. I thought Clemson was more impressive. It looks like Clemson is at 3 and Penn State's 4 and USC's 5 in that top 5. Anyone you disagree being there, Big C, even though they all had good wins over the first part of the week? Big C, your thoughts? Yeah.
They're going to be what they are. Football doesn't get busy until November rolls around, okay? We got to get through September, the fill-out games.
Yeah.
Halfway through October, that's when we know who the real boys are, Charles.
Yeah.
People are going to suffer losses.
Yeah.
People are starting out. We don't have a preseason in college football. So it's about coming in, staying healthy, and then through their first 5 or 6 games in here, Charles.
Yeah.
Ohio State had a slow, sluggish start. It was just what they did in last year's playoffs.
Yeah.
In the second half, they moved up. J.T. Barrett found his groove and got the team where they needed to be.
Yeah.
When you talk about the rankings, Charles, what about some of those teams with those great upsets that scored a lot of points?
Yeah.
They don't get any fanfare favor.
No.
The teams that are ranked are the teams that the BCS wants to make money. That's the bottom line, Charles. Because you look at these teams that were knocked off
Yeah.
by these unknowns and Maryland, Liberty.
Yeah.
These teams that came in and had these huge victories over these ranked programs, Charles.
Yeah.
UCLA. You're going to tell me that they didn't play well like Washington State, Charles?
Yeah.
These Pac-12 teams are not ranked.
No.
Michigan and Ohio State get an automatic pass. Alabama gets an automatic pass. LSU, you think about LSU, Charles. LSU, for the first time in NCAA history,
Yeah.
did not allow its opponent to cross the midfield strike.
That's a very point.
BYU did not cross the 50-yard line all
Yeah.
night long against that LSU defense.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me that they're not ranked in the top 10?
Well, ironically, that's a very good point. Would you believe, Big C, out here on the West Coast, the Pac-12 was the only conference, the major 5, that went undefeated in the first week, 12-0. No Pac-12 team lost a football game. Now, you can go into Oregon State before this week when they lost at Colorado State, but in this last week, all the Pac-12 teams were undefeated. However, when I look at the rankings of the top 25, the highest ranked is USC at number 5, and then you have Washington, they're there at number 7. You got to drop all the way down to 14 before you find Stanford, and then at the end you have a Washington State and Utah knocking on the door at 22 and then 23. So your conference goes undefeated. You only get 5 teams that are ranked in the top 25, but the highest one ranked is USC. Now, maybe they didn't look that good. I think one of them going to knock each other off, Stanford and USC this week. And if you're Stanford and USC, I think Stanford's won 6 of the last 10 against the Trojans. I know they have different personnel, but Coach Shaw, he's still consistent. I think Stanford, more than any team in the Pac-12, is maybe probably in the strongest part to win the Pac-12 North. Big C, your thoughts? Yeah.
African American coach. That's
Yeah.
the reason why they don't get any more, hoopla than what they do, Charles.
Yeah.
They knock off the big boys all the time.
Yeah.
And so they come into USC. They're not intimidated by their program. And that table was set by Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
One of the greatest upsets in college football history when he beat Pete Carroll when he was there.
Yeah.
But this program has continued to move on after Harbaugh. And what Shaw has done over the years has been nothing less than miraculous.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the Pac-12, you got a conference that goes undefeated the entire week. Look at the Big 12, Charles. You look at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
No one's really talking a lot about those schools, Charles.
No.
West Virginia, Hamilton, Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech handled West Virginia.
Yeah.
No one's talking about that. When we look at the SEC, tell me who in the SEC is dominant, Charles, other than Alabama. Mississippi State played somebody that had 3 players that couldn't even show up.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so, they got trounced by Michigan.
Yeah.
If not for their defense, they may have been shut out. They scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
And, so when you look at these teams, Charlton, like I said, this is a team, this is about positioning for the BCS.
Yeah.
And the bigs wanting the bigs to make money. Penn State had probably the best performance in the Big.
They look really strong in the Big, yeah. Big 19, the Big 75, Big C. That's where they are. Yeah.
But they had the best performance in the conference.
Yeah.
Not in the top five, Charlton.
Yeah, I mean they're knocking on the door depending on who you ask for between 5 and 6. But this week is almost like bowl week number 2. You have Auburn taking on Clemson. Clemson, to me, of any team, they look like. I mean, it's easy to say what team looked like what compared to who. Alabama's always number 1 in my mind because they play an NFL style defense. Yeah. Yeah.
And Alabama came in at number 1.
Yeah.
The defending national champion is not in considered for that.
Well, they're behind the team they shut out in Ohio State. They're behind the team they shut out in Ohio State in a playoff game. And even though they have a lot of good players returning at Clemson, the same coach, Dabo Swinney, say what you want about him, the man knows how to coach and he knows how to recruit. And that program's ranked behind the team they shut out in a bowl game last year. And they have a lot of good players coming back. But that Auburn...
Behind the team they shut out,
yeah.
and behind the team they beat.
Yeah.
So you talk about respect. This is about, like I said, this is positioning for the guys that they want to be where they want to be. Charles.
Yeah.
Position teams early enough in the season, you almost guarantee them a playoff spot.
Yeah.
They can still suffer a loss and they catapult somebody into the playoffs.
Yeah, but that game huge on the Pac-12 is Stanford going into the Coliseum at USC. The way Stanford runs the football, again, they put up over 60 points against Rice down in Australia, so they may have a little bit of jet lag, but I doubt it because they always get it for Southern Cal. I know Southern Cal, the Darnold effect, this will be his coming out or going away story, playing against a good Stanford defense that knows how to play well against good quarterbacks, Big C. I don't know who's going to win that game. I know the Pac-12 wants USC to win it because they want to tout him as a Heisman Trophy candidate. And, of course, when USC is on top, it's always good for the Pac-12 conference. But that has upset written all over it, as well as the Auburn and Clemson game. I think Clemson has enough to do in Auburn. But I want to get your thoughts down south, Big C. I know we have all the weather issues. I don't know if it's going to be an issue where they play that game, but they're still going to have a lot of wetness, which is going to slow down both teams. Just your feeling for what's happening with Auburn and Clemson coming up, Big C. Your thoughts?
You always run the football first.
Yeah.
Passing is a secondary thought. It's not like the West Coast where no one knows how to put the ball on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
Down here in the South, it's a major part of the game. And when you think about Clemson,
Yeah.
this is a team that had a solid running game. They got a young quarterback. They want to protect him as much as they can by keeping the ball on the ground.
Yeah.
Auburn has always been known for a powerhouse running program, Charlton. Back to the days of Bo Jackson and
Yeah.
even before that, Charlton.
Yeah.
This is a team that has always run the ball. And so even when Cam Newton won the Heisman Trophy, they ran the ball. When Nick Marshall took Auburn to the national championship,
Yeah. Yeah.
they ran the football. So this is a team that's on the rebuilding mode. This is a game that will go a long way as far as the playoff chase goes, Charlton. Clemson needs to win this game because they have a limping Florida State coming in after that.
Yeah.
But I do like what Clemson's chances are in this game, Charlton. They're not undaunted by the ACC.
Well, I think one of the better quarterbacks in the Pac-12 coming up this week. He will be tested up at Washington State. Falk. He's a good quarterback. Had a good game last week against a lower program in Montana. Now Boise State's going to be their matchup. Boise State, if anything, they get up for the big games. A couple years ago, they knocked off Georgia down in the Georgia Dome. They've also beaten Oregon twice. They've beaten Washington. They beat Oklahoma. We know how they did that back in the day. They've always played close games against tough competition. This is a must-win game for Boise State to even have consideration for being one of those bracket busters, Big C. Washington State throws the ball very well. Just give me a feel if Leach, he knows they have to win this game. There can't even be a close game if they're going to climb and even have any sniff of talking about being a playoff team. Big C, your thoughts on Washington State and Boise?
Boise State doesn't sneak up on anybody anymore, Charlton.
No.
This is a program of consistency. They developed a lot of excellent NFL players.
Yeah.
Washington State has been up and coming. Mike Leach has gone in and turned this program around.
Yeah.
He's put that red gun offense in. He has a tremendous quarterback in Folk who can deliver the ball all over the field. At one point, Charlton, he was 22 for 22 in the game.
Yeah.
So, he's not going to be fazed by
Yeah.
He doesn't do a lot of reading. He gets the ball out of his hand. A lot of 3 and 5 step drops.
Yeah.
And the ball is gone. He's not sitting there waiting on people to cover it deep.
Yeah.
Come clear. He's hitting them out the flats and over the middle and let them run with the football. Yards after catch.
And the great thing you can say about Falk that you can't say about any other quarterback in the country last week, he was 20 for 20 in his first 20 passes. Just a very accurate quarterback, can get out of the pocket. He's not the biggest guy, but he does remind me of a guy that just makes, he's skinny like Tom Brady, not quite as tall, but he does know how to make plays. Big C, as we close out, I know we all love NFL football, and I know there's pro and con no matter what side you're on. Ezekiel Elliott being able to play in the game on Monday night for their Monday night their Monday night contest. And I just want to get your thoughts. There's two things. Number one, we don't condone domestic violence anyway. It can go against men and women. But something that has to be told, even though it might feel unsympathetic, there are times when athletes are accused of things they did not do. Now, there's an investigator that she didn't think there was enough credible evidence to go against Ezekiel Elliott, but Goodell decided to punish him anyway because they're very serious against domestic violence, especially when the accusers are African American. And that's just a fact. You can Google that too. Your thoughts on what went on and why it took so long? He's still going to have to do the lawsuit thing. They're going to appeal everything. Just give me your thoughts on what's going on with Elliott and the NFL and domestic violence. Big C, your thoughts. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the most troubling part because there were a couple of players drafted this year that the NFL said they would not pursue because these incidents occurred while they were in college.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand the double standard by Goodell. He only goes really after high-profile players.
Yeah.
His track record.
Yeah.
The players that he goes after and makes it a media event are high-profile. When he went after Brady,
Yeah.
high-profile.
Yeah.
You know, he's going after Ray Rice. He was high-profile after winning a Super Bowl trophy.
Yeah.
You know, this is the thing that he's done. You look at Ezekiel Elliott, you know, the way the Dallas Cowboys turned around that season. We've talked about players that have committed manslaughter,
Yeah.
obstruction of justice, and all these other things that they really haven't gone after with this type of ferocity.
They make them spokespersons.
It makes no sense because it doesn't make you popular.
No.
Okay?
No.
It makes you look good to go after a high-profile player, and I'm not saying that Elliott's innocent. I mean,
We don't know.
He deserves a suspension.
Right.
He's guilty. But when you have the lead, investigator says she found no evidence.
Nothing,
of this,
yeah.
And Goodell still goes and says, "Well, I'm going to hit you with a 6-game suspension, nevertheless."
Yeah.
What is your point as a commissioner? We understand you make the owners millions and hundreds of millions of dollars a year each.
Yeah.
Okay? But you also got to look at the player's perspective. Research the thing entirely.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that Tom Brady had all these visitors and electronics that, you know, with the New England Patriots when they had Spygate, they
Yeah.
had Deflategate, they had every other gate that you can open, you know,
Yeah.
that gate.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, these things that occur by the commissioner, and you look at who he goes after. He's going after high-profile players to say, "I'm the sheriff."
Yep.
The guys who are not high-profile, you really don't hear anything about their suspensions, Charlton. It goes under the radar. So the commissioner is almost in cahoots with the media. He fucks himself up like a rooster walking through the chicken yard.
Well, I've heard about roosters walking through chicken. Hey, Big C, when you bring it up, has anyone tried to get that big bird in front of Mercedes-Benz Stadium down there in Georgia? I'm sure Arthur Blank has a lot of balls to put a bird out in front of a stadium where you good old boys down south. Big C, your thoughts?
We've gone by and signed him up a couple times trying to find people that he may fit into. But we're going to find a way to pluck him out of there.
I hope Arthur Blank has a lot of insurance on that bird because it's a gorgeous stadium and the food is inexpensive. But that's like teasing those good old boys with the shotguns. And I think down there in Georgia they can carry weapons. I'm not sure if they can or not. But I just hope for that bird. I hope it stays safe. It's such a pretty stadium, and I hope that the people don't desecrate that bird and try to put him up on the wall. What?
Think about this. Come
Yeah.
Easter time, we can get the bird out of Atlanta. We can come out and get the bunny out there.
That would be a nice dinner. Bunny rabbit and wine from California, and we have moonshine and birds from the South, Big C. That'll be a great party. I'm sure a lot of good old boys will come up with that one, Big C. Last thing I do want to cover on today's program, and again, our thoughts and prayers are with everyone out there trying to be safe with this horrific weather that we're having all over the country, and I hope that people are mindful of all the emergency services and alerts. I think a lot of people have already gotten out of Florida, Big C, I believe, and I don't know if they shut down some of the stadiums or not, but I know the Dolphins and the Tampa, they're not going to play. Yeah.
I understand Florida, but you got to understand what's going on in the
Yeah.
The airline industry, Charles, raised their prices extraordinarily. There were some islands that they were charging as much as $5,000 to get out of. You could not find
Really?
an airline ticket to get out of any of those island nations, Charles, for less than $1,000.
That's horrible.
And this is something that the FCC needs to look, the FAA needs to look
Yeah.
at, the federal government needs to look at.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, price gouging when people's lives are in peril.
That's a shame, Big C. That's a shame, and hopefully, I'm glad you brought that up because everyone says evacuate the city and go watch a sporting event, but if you can't get on an airplane because they jacked the price up 10 times what it normally costs, that's almost criminal, Big C, because that's going to cost some people their lives, unfortunately, Big C, and I'm glad you brought that up. I was really unaware of that, Big C, but I do want to say on this, there's so many things going on in the world of sports. We hope that everyone can stay safe and just make sure that you do what law enforcement tells you. Try to find cover. Get out of town if you have to. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bondini Brown. He was Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He used to always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
I'm trying to see if your Dodgers out there on the West Coast can get turned around. They lost 9 or 13 games, and so they were going through a little swoon here late in the season.
Yeah.
The Houston Astros are trying to stay on track. They picked up Verlander. He's in the lineup pitching for them now, Charleston. Baseball is getting ready to get that for October.
Yeah.
Charleston. I'm all excited about baseball.
Well, Big C, we're all excited about everything. We hope that everybody can stay safe no matter what you're doing. Every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, the #1 network in the United States of America, and Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to tell you, there's never, ever any reason to ever hit a woman. If you know any woman going through that garbage, just call 911 because we want to make sure that we keep people safe. And honestly, we always tell you on every Big C Sports program, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.